Hello, my dear students. Welcome to CR Digital Classes. Today, we are learning about functions and its advantages. The question which may come across in your paper would be what is a function? What are the advantages of using function? Or it may be about what is a function and give an example. So, what is a function? Why we need to use a function? A function is a block of code which is used to perform a particular activity or a task. For example, if you have a annual day function, okay, so in order to execute an annual day function, there are so many other functions which you need to look out. For example, you need to first invite the guest, that is the first function. Then again you have to check with the snacks, that is second one. Then again you have to look at the arrangements about the stage and the chase arrangement, that is third function. Like this, what you do, a complete big block of code is divided into smaller functions so that the retainability or the modularity of the particular function can be handled so far. So whenever you try to take with the functions help us to organize and help us to modularize the task easily by enhancing or dividing the big work into smaller work, and so that it can be handled easily. So whenever you say a function is nothing but it is a set of statements which are executing for a particular task. Now, as we all know that main is the first function which executes and the last one to be terminated. There are two types of functions. So first one, it is the built-in functions which are already predefined and the meaning of that is already known to the user, and whenever you are using the built-in functions, compulsory we need to take the help of the header files. Whereas there are another type of function, that is user-defined function, where which is the user defines his own function in order to make the work easier. So whenever you say a function is, what is a function? You can say it is a block of code which is designed to perform an activity or a task. It helps us in modularity, and at the same time it can be readable, and you can easily read the code and you can make any modifications, and it can be reusable. Whereas whenever you are going with a function, it helps in the redundancy, reducing the redundancy and making the program more manageable. Now, what are the advantages? That is nothing but, as I already stated, that is the reusability factor. That is, write once and you can execute a number of times. At the same time, you can execute the code in minimal steps, and you can, whenever you are saying it is a minimal step, the maximum efficiency of the functions are executed. There is a saving of the memory space, and we can easily find the errors which are being occurring within the code. So these are the advantages of using functions. So as we have stated earlier, there are two types of function, that is built-in functions or the library functions, which are already predefined, and which is, if you want to use them compulsory, we need to take the help of the header file like hash include for your printf and scanf, hash include stdio.h, and hash include math.h for the math related functions. Then again you have hash include the string.h. These are all predefined header files which are already given, and there are n number of built-in functions which are already there. So that is why we just categorize them into a group called built-in functions. Whenever you say it as user-defined functions, when the user-defined function is being stated, what happens is it is created by the user according to the need of the user. So whenever you say a function, so already we know the function always expects the user to perform a particular activity. Whereas when you talk about the printf and scanf, there are single line statements or single line functions. They execute and come out. Square root, again, it is a single activity where it is finding the square of a given number. So these are the categories where the user defines his own functions. Before we talk about that, we'll just have a detailed description about the how the user defines his own user defined function. So there is a particular syntax. The syntax would be return type, function name, and the parameter list. We already know whenever you are saying it as a function, any particular, that is print f as a, when you are giving it, that is here print f and followed by braces. Now in this we are saying it as hello. Now hello is a string statement and which is being given, and again it is terminated by the semicolon. That is why we are saying it as a single line function. When you talk about the user defined function, so there is no return value because it is a single line statement. Now whenever you are saying it as main, function, whenever you're saying it as a main again it can contain 100 lines of code, it can contain 1000 lines of code. Now always main expects the user return something or the other to the calling. So what you are doing here, you are specifying in order to satisfy the main, you are saying it as return 0. Return 0 means here the main is returning an integer, that because a main is always having a particular return value as integer. So when you don't give the value return 0, by default it will be raising an error, that is the function has to return something. So then you have to satisfy the compiler by giving or stating the statement that is return 0. Now whenever you are saying like this, return type, function name and parameter list. So here this is the syntax of a user defined function, where return type specifies what type of value you are about to return, and at the same time the name of the function is the unique function name. The parameter lists are nothing but the input values which are being passed in order to perform that activity. We will see with the example. Now for example here, int add. Okay, now int add is a function name. The parameters are here, it is a and b. A and b are nothing but these are the actual values which are being given. So here the return value, because it is return type is integer, what you are doing, the resultant of a plus b is returned. So here there are three parts of a particular function whenever you are saying it. So first part being the function declaration. Now, as we already know that user-defined functions are not known to the compiler, so first for that reason we need to declare the function to the compiler by having a certain syntax. What is the syntax here? That is, we have to specify the function name, the return value, the arguments which is it is contained within itself. That is nothing but we are telling or informing the compiler that I am trying to use this particular function with certain things, and it will return me certain value. So what is that type of value which is being written? Either it can be an integer or a float or double, whatever it may be, it has to be stated beforehand it is used. So first itself we define it, we declare it, and then we use it, we execute our statements in the function. Okay. Now whenever you are saying it here, int add, int comma int, that is nothing but this function is having a parameter, that is which are of type integer. Now here this is the first parameter, this is secondary parameter, and again it is having a terminator. Terminator, why we are saying here, means nothing but it is a prototype. A function prototype is a prototype where you are telling the compiler that I am using the values which are of type integer and which are returning me a value called integer. So like this statement I am informing it to the compiler. Now what is a function call? See, whenever I don't call a particular statement, I cannot use it, right? So what you are doing here is you are calling the function called add. So who calls here is nothing but main will be the calling function and the called function will be the add. We'll see with an example and then we can execute it. Okay. Now what is that here is, we'll see with an example here. That is, so for example here, hash include stdio.h. Okay. Now what I'm doing here is I am saying it in add int comma int. Okay. Now I'm returning the value. I don't want to return any particular, that is why I mentioned it as there is no return value. So for that reason I mentioned it as void. So in this what I have done here is I declared a variable, that is here it is int a comma b comma c. Okay. Now here what I am doing here is I am calling I am initializing the value of a, that is a is equal to, here itself I'll mention it, int a value is 5 and b value is 6 and c value is 0. Okay. Now here what I have done here is I'm just stating the statement, that is int. So here I'll mention it as sum is equal to 0. So what I'm doing here is int sum is equal to add. Okay, the values are given. Add 10 comma 20. Okay. Now then again, so printf sum is equal to %d. The value is sum is printed. Okay. This is your main, and we have to specify the body of the function, that is int add int x comma int y. In this, what we are doing here, we are giving the value x is equal to, that is here, a value is x and b value is y, or you can directly mention it as a and x. Directly you can take it here x. Okay, a is equal to x and b is equal to y. So what we are doing, x plus y is equal to into z. Okay, now return z. Now what happens here is, now whenever you are going it, okay, this is said to be as a body of the function. This is said to be as the body of the function. Okay, now this is said to be as the function call. This is said to be as a function call. Who is calling whom? That is nothing but main is calling the add function to perform an addition of two numbers which are having a value of 10 comma 20. So 10 and 20 are nothing but the actual values which are being passed to the formal parameters over here, that is x and y are replaced with 10 and 20 which are returned. So I can say it here, that is here it is x and you can say it as a and you can say it as b and you can say it as b. Okay. Now here what is happening here is you are directly assigning the value and returning the z. So it is nothing but whenever you are saying like this, okay. Now whenever you are assigning the value, what happens is there are three things which can be done over here. That is, first initially what you are doing, you are giving the value that is a and here it is b. If you give it like that also no problem. That is here int c is equal to a plus b, return c. Okay, now what happens here is you are returning because the value is here. Okay, because the value is here, return c. This has to be executed. First thing what you are doing, first it is meeting three criteria. What are they? First, it is checking with the prototype whether it is having a certain prototype similar to your header file. Yes, it is having. Then what you are doing, you are calling the function. Who is calling whom? That is main is calling the add function to execute. As soon as it gets called, what it is doing is it is checking for the body where exactly its function body is available. It goes to that place and checks the values whether it is having the same value. For example, if the value is not here, that is int is not there, then it raises an error. Otherwise, it gets executed and it will check for the values. Now, whatever you have mentioned, okay. Now, whatever you have mentioned, so here the value will be int a. So whenever we are passing int a over here, it assigns the value 10 and 20 simultaneously and executes the statement because I did not do any particular calculation over here. So what happens here is I am executing the statement that is a plus b, return c. Return c is nothing but because the value here is return value is integer, it is returning to the compiler and it is assigning to the sum where sum is printed onto the screen. So this is said to be as a body of the function. Now what is the body of the function is nothing but whenever you are sending values back to the calling function, so return values should be there. So when the return value you don't want to mention, then you put it as void. Now here in this case it is integer, that is why we are satisfying the compiler by specifying the return value as c. Okay, so what is the things which need to be summarized over here is whenever a function is stated, what you need to do is you have to have three things in mind. That is function declaration. Second thing is you need to check with the parameters and you need to check with the call, that is the function is getting called. Then again you have to check with the body of the function. If these three things are there, then you can easily execute your function. So whenever you are saying a function, so what is a function? A function is a piece of code which gets executed on the based on the calling value. Whoever gets called, that is it is checking the parameters, whether if it is matching properly, then it will return to the appropriate user. So there are three ways here, where you can check it. Whenever you are saying no arguments and no return value, you can take it as, that is here you can there is this particular function is having no return value, then it is nothing but void add. Okay, here what you are doing, you are just simply saying it as hello. Okay, it's nothing but void, no return value. That means when you don't have any return value, mention it as void in the return data type. Then specify it as with your hello. Then again here you are having the statement that is print. What you have to print? Printf. hello to see classes. Okay. So this is your normal statement. Okay. With arguments and no return value. With arguments and no return value is nothing but like this. That is void. No return value. Okay. It is void. Okay. Add. Arguments are there. That means nothing but you need to have the arguments here. That is int a comma int b. Okay, then and there itself you are executing the program and you are printing the values with arguments and with return value. That means int, add, int comma int. Okay, so it is with return value with arguments. No arguments with return value. Now no arguments with return value would be, that is, yes, int hello, and here you are stating x value is 5, return x. Okay, there in the statement you can execute the code. So these are the 4 categories where you can check with your user defined functions, where you need not have the arguments and you can need not have the return value, with arguments and no return value, with arguments with return value. Then you can check it with the last one would be no arguments with the return value. So the main key points which you need to summarize with your function would be, it is having a proper return data type, it is having a function name, it is having a parameter list, and the body of the function is executed based accordingly you have to write the body. If you're writing within the particular function itself, then it is okay. Otherwise, when you're writing outside the main, it has to be get called and you have to get executed. So whenever you're saying a function, so what is a function? It is a piece of code which executed on the based on the calling of the particular main function. So main is the first calling function which gets executed, and you can include n number of small functions which are within the main. Okay. Now next one would be your, so what are the different aspects of your function declaration and definition? Definition is nothing but where exactly you are having the body. Okay, declaration, what you are doing is you are telling it to the compiler that yes, I am trying to use this particular statement. When you are providing the body, what happens is nothing but the body is provided. Similarly here, this is the body of the main. Okay, now when you talk about the body, in the declaration we don't provide the body, because we just say that yes, what we are about to use within this particular program. So like these statements, I have to use it. Now when you're saying it, the function definition, what you're doing, it is containing with the body and it gets implemented. So you can see this example here where you are having int add comma int and int. It is nothing but it is a declaration part, and this is said to be as your body of the function where exactly your function is getting executed. So there are some other built-in functions which you can look at. That is nothing but C-type functions and time functions and your mathematical functions. So some of the functions which are being given would be here. That is square root, power, ceil and floor. Okay, ceil is nothing but where you are rounding off to the ceil value, that is the upper value. When you talk about the floor, we are just rounding it to the ground value or the lower value. When you talk about the square, square root is nothing but where you're finding the square of a given number. Power is raised to 2 power 3, that is 8 is being given over there. So when you talk about this mathematical function, compulsory you need to include a math.h header file. When you talk about the string.h header file, these are the certain functions which are being given where the strings are being compared, and it all works upon the string statements. Okay. When you talk about the character function, it is a C-type function, that is we are checking whether it is a digit or not, whether it is an alphabet or not. We can convert into lower and uppercase. When you talk about the date and time function, we need to include the header file called time.h, where you are able to retrieve the date, time and the time of the particular user. Okay. So on the whole, whenever you say, that is what is the summary point would be, that is the functions are reusable blocks of code that improve the modularity and the readability of the particular code which is being given. So it includes 3 factors, that is a declaration, definition and the call. Definition is nothing but the body, declaration is nothing but defining it prior to the use. Then call is nothing but where you are executing the function because it gets called whenever you are calling. So return statement sends the, return is a keyword. Okay, and now whenever it is being written, whenever using it, it gets executed or it gets called and it returns a value to the calling function. So function enhances the readability as well as efficiency of the program can be maintained, and it is easy for us to debug. So thank you. Please like and subscribe for the CR Digital classes. Thank you.